going to switch gears and talk about the elephant in the room, Ethereum, and your conviction on Ethereum. So I've been building out detailed pricing models for Ethereum since early 2020. I'm still scratching my head as how I was buying Ethereum under 200 last year. It's like, are you kidding me? People just expect so much in this space. It's bizarre. But according to my price prediction models, I see a 40K ETH now in the year 2027. But any update on where you see this run, and is it all a function of adoption?
Again, I'm using base case probabilities, no certainties. I still think ETH finishes this year closer to 15,000 than to 10,000. Yeah. Just by the nature of what is actually going on right now, and the chart patterns, and the people who are coming into the space. I actually still see ETH potentially. The small probability upside is that it hits 40,000 by the summer. That's because of the staking cycle and how the charts look, and using the log chart, extending it forwards, and a number of things give me that.
So I see, obviously, ETH is a much faster horse than Bitcoin. Bitcoin's a much bigger machine. But I always spoke about the 10-to-1 ratio. We're kind of like not at that yet. We're at the 12.5 mark. But I see, if we do see a 10K ETH, I always see will be 100K Bitcoin, 20K ETH, 200K Bitcoin. Do you look at a similar type of ratio between both, or do you think they're discrete?
I think the ratio is changing, and it's going to go to something significantly different than. So if it's 12 now, it probably goes to 7, 6. So I think that's what that ETH Bitcoin chart is telling me. So I think that relationship's going to shift over time.
6 is flippening territory.
Yes, exactly. I think we're going to, my guess is this cycle, we don't get a proper elongated bear market. And by an elongated bear market, I'm not talking down 80, I'm talking about down 50 and it stays down for 9 months and bores everybody out kind of thing. I think that happens when the flippening happens, and we'll readjust again and Bitcoin will become the larger asset. I think the flippening has a decent probability.
Yeah.
In the next 9 months.
How does Ethereum stay ahead of this murderous row of faster, cheaper chains that are already ETH 2.0 already? Does that concern you at all? Or does network effect combat that?
The actual answer is I don't care. Of course, ETH's dominance, like Bitcoin's dominance, will fall over time, because new technology comes into the space and they solve different problems, and they have different orders of centralization versus decentralization as trade-offs. And that's absolutely fine. So the Bitcoin dominance is going to diminish over time. ETH dominance will diminish over time. Sol's dominance versus others will diminish over time, because this space is changing in structure.
But in terms of your investment conviction right now, in terms of your position, with your options, you're 82% ETH, which is very heavy conviction, in my opinion.
Yes, and I think that Solana will outperform ETH in this cycle.
Yep.
And I think that Terra will outperform ETH. So why don't I have all my money in those? Because I have less certainty, because the network effects are less pronounced. So awesome. Therefore, I have to have a smaller bet.
I'm a big fan of the Lindy effect. So you did mention Sol. Ethereum has 4 times more Lindy than Sol. Okay, think of Solana being 1.5 years old, Ethereum being maybe 7 years. And that is obviously a big first mover advantage. There's more assets on Ethereum. It's trusted because it's proven the test of time. However, the interesting thing to me is, it's proof of work. Now we're switching to proof of stake. Does that reset the Lindy clock?
I don't think so. I think it is part of the Lindy. So it's another test. What is the robustness of the network? The network is actually not the technology, it's the people that use it. So if it continues to attract nodes and interconnections between the nodes in its new format, then it's survived yet another Lindy test. We saw this exact same thing with Bitcoin in 2017 with the forking wars. And that was the biggest Lindy test. In fact, it threw me off. Bitcoin, I sold, I bought Bitcoin at 200 back in 2013, sold it in 2017 for 2,500. early because of this. And I'm like, is it going to survive this S-curve moment or not? And I wasn't sure. So I couldn't commit capital to it. Now, is Ethereum going to survive this S-curve moment? The probability is high because of the network effects and how robust they are, but it's not certain. So would I want to reduce my ETH exposure after we've gone into this? Probably. Are there other opportunities in different areas in crypto? Of course.
ETH versus Sol, the other elephant in the room. You mentioned it is the Solana is the ETH of this cycle a couple of times, which I agree. I do believe I had a very big bag of Ethereum that I built in 2020, early 2020. I've been in Bitcoin since 2017. And then I was very concerned with the protection of my Ethereum bag. So I spent a long time, and I'm talking a long time, looking for the supposed ETH killer. Now, per all of our detailed analysis, we thought Sol was the most likely to be that ETH killer. But switching gears, I'm not talking about there is an ETH killer or not, because even Anatoly from Solana says everybody can coexist. They're not an ETH killer. They don't want to be. But there is an angle here I want to bounce off you. And basically, settlement is a feature that all Byzantine smart contracts have. All chains do settlement. The question is, if ETH could be classified as the global settlement layer, is it possible that there could be a global execution layer called Solana?
Well, it depends, because the layer 2s on Ethereum solve that same problem. I just think it's going to be a blend. The answer is right now, I don't know. But I think Solana plays a role. Could it be larger than ETH over time? Potentially. Could there be a flippening? Possibly. It depends what people need the network for. And if the fees don't get resolved and people want more speed because we want different transactions, maybe Sol. But is Sol fast enough to solve the securities industry needs? Because they're all going on blockchain. You know, people frame it so much in terms of Bitcoin and the ultimate decentralized asset. Yes, that's Bitcoin's USP. Nothing else is Bitcoin. So can the internet computers super fast blockchain? I don't even own it. So, you know, there's a lot of haters out there. I don't own it, but I observe that they're building something pretty unique.
Yeah.
Could that play a big role? Could that be the ETH of the next cycle? Could be. It could also not. It could fail. I don't know. It's getting some network effects.
And speaking of the roll-ups, the ZK roll-ups, etc., do you think they are a band-aid to an underlying problem? Because you don't see Solana having these types of roll-ups, but again, as you mentioned, they do sacrifice a little bit of that decentralization aspect.
Is there anything wrong with the Ethereum? So look at Bitcoin. It is riddled with its own restrictions because of its perfection in what it does.
Yeah.
So you have to build the Lightning layer to do any transactions because it's useless for transactions. And it can't do big block sizes, it can't do fast, it can't do a lot of things. ETH comes along, it can do all of those things. But now ETH may not be fast enough, good enough, secure enough, whatever, to do different things. So like Bitcoin, we're seeing these things being built on, but it's a bit late. So Ethereum may build some of this stuff on, but it may be used elsewhere, which is kind of what you're alluding to. Probably. But will people stop using Ethereum? Highly unlikely at this stage. But I cannot see into the future, because once you've got interoperability, if people decide that some other new chain is better, you can basically migrate everything across chain.